The Pittsburgh Steelers got embarrassed in their own city. That's what happened in the first round of the 2026 NFL Draft. That's what happened, if you're being honest. I'm Mike Asti, and this is a first round recap edition here, a Steelers / NFL first round recap edition of Mic Drop, made possible by the Believe Network, available everywhere you get your podcasts, and also played across the Believe platforms and on SiriusXM. And there's no other way around this. Okay. Max Huttenchor, who, by the way, Steeler fans and Pittsburghers and Yinzers especially are going to be mispronouncing for however long he's on the Steelers. I kind of messed it up a little bit there. Kind of got close, I feel like. And we're going to call him Big Max for the purpose of this show and for probably the rest of his coverage. Many of us in media are going to be mispronouncing this man's name. Nothing against him, though. A solid player, a solid offensive tackle. Did it big at Arizona State. Even shows some versatility. He is a big man, and that is speaking as literal as possible. He does fit that protect whoever's going to be the quarterback, whether it's Aaron Rodgers as an older one or a younger one in Will Howard or whatever they do in the future or the rest of this draft. Mike McCarthy likes big linemen. Most coaches do. He fits that. He could have a solid career. He could be a good pick. He could be a great Pittsburgh Steeler. He could make this tenure for Mike McCarthy as great as it can be, assuming it's not going to be forever. He could then go to the next coach and have success as well. He plays a position that teams often keep resigning that guy. He could be a multiple-time Pro Bowler. Who knows if he ends up in Canton in the Pro Football Hall of Fame? We don't know. He has a pedigree. He fits the system. He's freaking big, and that's what you want in an O-lineman. And he's athletic and versatile. He could have a great career. Nothing against him. And I saw him in college. Nothing against him. But he wasn't the Steelers guy. Let's not lie here, Steelers. Like, you tried a little bit to dance around it when you talk to the media after the pick. Okay. Bill Cowher, obviously your legend, who's in media with CBS and sitting there as part of draft coverage on the McAfee show the morning after, saying he doesn't believe the Steelers could mess up this way. He knows people there, and obviously he's been gone a long time. He certainly doesn't know everybody. Omar Khan was not there when he was there. This isn't Kevin Colbert running the ship now. This is Omar Khan. This is a different management group. Mike McCarthy now the head coach. Obviously, the Rooney family is still there. Mike Tomlin gone. Many of the other people who are in PR and communications, etc., Cowher knows. But to not believe this could happen to them, to not believe this could happen to Mike McCarthy or Omar Khan just off of what you know from them, and then to say that you don't even believe a player who said it is a little ridiculous now that we have proof. Because the Pittsburgh Steelers got embarrassed by the Philadelphia Eagles. The Pittsburgh Steelers have a solid offensive tackle now, a part of the fold, but he wasn't their guy. The Pittsburgh Steelers wanted USC wide receiver Mekhi Lemon. They did. So much so, guys, they called the man to tell him. And there's a video out there. They can't backpedal or deny this. They would have to honestly argue AI or dubbing people's names in or literally calling Lemon a liar. That's really where they would have to go if they're going to deny this now. He said it, and now there's video to prove it. And he got a call from Omar Khan. He got a call from the Pittsburgh Steelers telling him that they were preparing to take him. Before they could, though, the Philadelphia Eagles then swooped in like a bird in the freaking sky in Pittsburgh and did what they do best in recent years, and that's dominate the NFL draft. That's why they have 2 Super Bowl championships in recent years with 2 different coaches, because they cycled through And that's a whole nother conversation, but they cycled through the guy that was a legend that couldn't get them over the hump. They found another coach. They won a ring. Then they didn't wait around for him either. They brought someone else in and they won again. Of course, this whole time the Steelers kept Mike Tomlin forever, and he's a Hall of Fame coach too. He deserves that, but they let it linger through a drought where they couldn't win a playoff game. Not much has yet to change now with an older coach in there too, even though maybe some facets are different. It's a new man, but we're feeling the same vibe here. Are we really feeling like things are going to change and they're going to go ahead and win a playoff game? They're going to make a Super Bowl run? Not really. Not really, independent of what Aaron Rodgers does. He's not going to lead them there right now at this point in his career. What he did in 2025 is the max for him. But to get him or whoever the quarterback who's going to be under center to start the season help, they wanted to get a wide receiver. And that makes tons of sense, by the way. Most people thought the Steelers would draft a wide receiver in the first round. If not, they would go lineman. If not receiver, they would go offensive lineman, in which they did. So that lines up, and it's not like they went nuts. And I thought the Rams trading up, which I'll get to later, trading up for Ty Simpson's a reach. I didn't think the Steelers would ever do that. If they would have done that, I think that would be another way to lose this first round, because I don't think he's going to be the guy. And he's in a good situation now. I wrote about it. He's in a great spot with the Rams, with McVay, and to learn under McVay and Stafford. But the Steelers don't have that for him. They're not going to provide that, even though McCarthy's there as a great quarterback guy. I'm not bought into Simpson to trade up that far and do that if you're the Steelers. That would have been bad. If they would have just went nuts and drafted a linebacker or random defensive players they've done in past years, if they don't know, that would have been odd. That would have been bad. They need more tight end depth, but first round, that would have been insane. You can do that later. There would have been no other quarterbacks that would have made sense early. The Hours, the Carson Becks. I like Aller's raw talent. I don't like Carson Beck at all as an NFL pro. That would be something you can do later in the draft. Those picks would have made it a horrible first round too for the Steelers if they reached in any of those ways. They didn't do any of those things, though. They sat back, and maybe they should have been aggressive, because they sat back and they saw a myriad of receivers go off the board. A myriad of receivers. It is a deep receiver class. Most experts say there were about 11 receivers in this class that they graded as first-round talent and would likely go in the first to early second round. Tons of them went in front of the Steelers because, again, they're picking towards the back half of the first round because they're good enough to get in, but not good enough to do anything. They don't have that top 10 pick. They haven't had it for a freaking very, very long time, which is the issue, kind of the purgatory you're in when you're good enough to get in the playoffs, but not good enough to really win a championship or win playoff games. That's where they've been. That's likely where they're going to be. That's where they sit right now, it seems. But they missed. They would have had to be really, really aggressive if they want any of those other receivers. And they didn't get any of those guys. But then they were going to be okay with Mekhi Lemon, and he's a really quality receiver. You bring in Michael Pittman Jr. Yeah, you have DK Metcalf there, but you need more. Receiver depth was a problem last year. It was a real big problem. There was nothing to help DK Metcalf. When he was out of there, they really couldn't throw the ball hardly. You have Pat Freiermuth being your second leading receiver, and he really had a down year for him as a tight end. Not good. That's not good enough in this era of football. That's horrendous. And they have addressed trying to improve it, but you need to draft one too. And they will in this draft. But if you want to get one of those top guys that can plug and play and get in there right away, since receiver is a position where you can play and dominate right away, they would have had to be aggressive and trade up to get any of those other guys that went in front of them, because teams really wanted receivers in this draft class despite it being so deep. This draft class is full of wide receivers. Or they would have at least have to move a spot or two above where they were, or they would have had to kind of have some idea what the Eagles were doing. But no matter what, whether it's their fault or not, the way they handled things, what happened, the Eagles, who there's not really a rivalry between the Steelers and Eagles like there is Penguins and Flyers, of course, or like maybe there has been throughout the history of other sports. Pirates and Phillies had one back in the 70s and early 90s. They don't really now, but at least they're in the same league. You have AFC versus NFC. It's not really going to be a rivalry between the Steelers or Eagles unless they would ever meet in a Super Bowl, which isn't happening on the Steelers' end. They're not getting there, of course. The Eagles could go back, though. Wouldn't shock me. And in Pittsburgh, a Philadelphia team embarrasses you as you host the draft. And at the same time, the Flyers holding a 3-0 series lead over the Pittsburgh Penguins, and maybe the last time Crosby faces the Flyers in the postseason. A real rough week for Pittsburgh especially in comparison to Philadelphia sports. A real rough week. And the Steelers got embarrassed. That's it. I mean, that's what it is. And there's fans who want to defend them. There are fans that say it doesn't matter that it was in Pittsburgh. I've already heard that it would be embarrassing anywhere, or this could happen to any team. Yeah, this could happen to any team. A dysfunctional team. Yeah, this could happen anywhere. Sure. Other franchises have been embarrassed in the first round of drafts before. The Minnesota Vikings freaking went 15 minutes, not 8 minutes like now, but 15 freaking minutes and didn't get to pick because they let that clock run out. Very, very embarrassing. It wasn't in Minnesota. There have been teams that have really reached, have odd drafts, just bizarre picks that their fans booed on stage. Donovan McNabb got booed on stage. Obviously, he had his career with the Eagles and was great for Philadelphia, but he was initially booed. They didn't like that pick. There have been times fans haven't liked the pick and voiced it. That's embarrassing for a franchise. For it to happen while you're hosting in your city, and we didn't get the full reaction at the time because people didn't have this video. The Steelers were kind of denying the phone call. Okay, it's a lineman, it's a tackle, he's going to be good. It's not like you had just a blizzard of booing there. And I was in the press box, so if you want to dispute on the reaction, go ahead. That's not what I've heard. That's not what it seemed like. That wasn't the vibe in the media rooms, that it was just so much negativity. But saying the Steelers needed to get a wide receiver in the first round and they didn't get one. When there were that many receivers drafted, they didn't get one. And they have a lot of picks in this draft too. They could have traded some. They could have tinkered and moved around, and maybe they still will. But even after the Steelers made their selection, many people, I was in many media group texts, people were waiting. Oh, now they're going to trade to get another pick. Now they're going to trade to get another pick. Now they're going to trade to get another pick in the first round because they could with all the picks they had. Didn't happen. Didn't happen. They end up with Big Max. Again, solid lineman, a big man. Tackle, some say want to move him to guard. Who knows what his career will be. I'm not saying he can't be good. Unfortunately, he's going to have this attached to him. Unfortunately, he's going to know, and people are going to keep hinting and asking in different ways that you weren't the Steelers guy. You weren't their first choice, even when the draft fell to their pick. Separate from saying what they wanted to do in trades and maybe teams turn them down or whatever that we don't know right now and is all back channel. They might have called and not got a deal done. But they were sitting there and thought they were going to draft somebody else in Mekhi Lemon. They called him to tell him, and the Eagles steal him away. They end up with him. And clearly this is part of moving A.J. Brown and his drama with the Eagles. And, he helped them win a championship, but that's not going to be a long-term thing. And Steelers already brought their veteran receiver in. They're not going to bring another one in. There's no way they're going to pay that many receivers in a room that are vets. No way. They're going to have the other guys be on rookie deals and have it be one of those drafted receivers. And you may still get a good receiver, sure, but it's not going to have the instant game-breaking talent as if they would have traded up to get one of these other receivers, or even if they would have got Lemon. I think getting Lemon, the reaction's better, obviously, today, separate from the embarrassing phone call. Just getting him, I think the fan base would have rathered a receiver. The best available receiver at that spot, I think, is what most fans would have preferred the Steelers to do. And that's what they were going to do. That's what they wanted to do. That's what they told the man who got drafted by the Eagles. They called him and said, congrats for being a Pittsburgh Steeler. And then he didn't know what the hell was going on because he got another phone call. And it's from the Eagles saying, no, this is our pick now. You're an Eagle. We're embarrassing Pittsburgh. And the Steelers tucked their tail between their legs. Again, Big Max could be a good pick. I'm not criticizing the pick and the player in general, but the Steelers got embarrassed. They did. Again, mic drop here, made possible by Believe, available everywhere you get your podcast. Now we have a YouTube channel, by the way, which I will say it may not look like a show that's been around that long. this is a show that's been around a long time. This is a show that initially I launched when I was helping run Trib Live Radio, what was Trib Live Radio with the Tribune Review in Pittsburgh, and have taken it throughout my career after departing the Trib. Again, with Believe, played on Sirius XM, available everywhere you get your podcast, a myriad of avenues over the years. Now also available on a separate, not just my own, which looks like someone's running it actively, but a Mic Drop, Mike Asti, Mic Drop YouTube channel. So Mic Drop with Mike Asti is now a YouTube channel. Search that in your YouTube bar, and you will find this just separately. All the past shows going back as far as I could go, not going back to the Trib days, but going back at least a couple years, are on this channel, but kind of dumped there all at once. So it doesn't really look like there's much activity or much engagement. Some of the recent ones that are popping off, and this will keep on rolling, and I'll try to make this channel happen. If not, go to my personal channel, which has a lot more of what's actually going on and is a lot more up to date in reality there. But again, Mike Asti here with you on Mic Drop. We are recapping the first round of the NFL draft, and that's where we're going to go now. And we had to start with the Steelers getting embarrassed by the Eagles. They did not get their guy. They did not get a receiver in the first round. The depth of the position cost them because other teams took that position in front of them. And say what you want about comparing Mekhi Lemon as a receiver and Big Max as an offensive tackle and what you're going to do with him and the plan having a big tackle under McCarthy and how that could be really, really good for an older or young QB. I've heard all the defenses. I think it could be a good pick. I think he could be a great player. It's nothing against him, the pick, the system, none of that. I get the idea, whether it's Rodgers or Howard or whoever under center. I get the idea. And it's a safe pick, too. I don't think it's going to be a pick that he'll go crazy, that he'll be, in the headlines for negative things, that he'll just flat out suck and that he'll be a malcontent or not learn from coaches or not adapt to the NFL. He has the size, the athleticism to fully adapt. None of that am I predicting from him. But he wasn't the Steelers guy. I can't get over it. I can't get over it. We'll eventually get over it. I can't get over it because that's what happened. We have video to prove it now. And they may do other things throughout the rest of this draft. We are speaking here the morning after the first round. So maybe they're going to move other picks. Maybe they're going to somehow add more picks than they have. They have 11 more. Maybe they're going to do wild things in the second round and end up with multiple second rounders and great players. And there are predictions of the Steelers really getting aggressive throughout the rest of this weekend in Pittsburgh. They may get cheers for those picks. The draft is graded off of more than one pick. Granted, most drafts, if you swing on the first pick or the first pick doesn't go your way, is rough the rest of the way, at least perception-wise. But the Steelers could still have a great draft, 100%. They could. I'm not sitting here saying I'm failing the draft. I'm giving them a D. I'm giving them a C. I'm not going to give any grade the morning after of an entire draft. I need to see this whole draft play out. And the first round pick, I'm not going to in any way grade him poorly either. He is a good player. You could argue that he's at least a B pick himself. And he's from a Power 4. Arizona State's been really good with him and not close to that in prior decades in the history of that football program. He's part of that. But he wasn't the Steelers guy. They called somebody else. I mean, picture this. Any of you who are married or in relationships. If before you're proposed to your wife now, that's a great moment. Maybe you have a great marriage, great kids, great relationship, great life, family, house, picket fence, all of it. Okay. Is it not stained a little bit if before you propose to her, an hour before, a day before, a week before, whatever, you propose to somebody else? Or to make it even better, what if you had a ring in your pocket, you were deciding between two women somehow because either you're dating both or you're dating one, but you're in love with the other and she was from your past or whatever. Try to stick with me here for this analogy. And you propose to one, or you're about to propose to one, would be similar here. You're driving in to propose to one. Like you have one waiting for you. You got dinner reservations with one. You're driving in there to propose to her. Say you're meeting her at the restaurant for some reason. You got to pick her up, by the way. Drive her in, imagining you're already living together. But here, you're meeting her and you're ready to propose. And then for some reason you don't, or you're about to show up to the restaurant, and before she's sitting there, and before you can, her ex-boyfriend just tackles you, pushes you out of the way, tells her he loves her, he proposes, she's marrying him. And you were going to do it, but someone else steals her away. That's one comparison. The other one is, think of it this way. You're about to propose to one, some reason you don't, and then you propose to somebody else an hour later, they accept it, you're getting married, you have a great life. Not your first choice. That's always attached to it, no matter what happens with the family, the kids, the life. That's this. I mean, that's going to be attached to Big Max. At least I know my colleagues, and we're not going to let him forget it. We're going to bring this up. I mean, maybe respectfully to him, we won't pound the drum. This is going to be brought up for a while. This is going to be mentioned, even if not to his face, in coverage on shows, written about, discussed. It's going to be mentioned amongst fans. It's going to be on social media. Whatever Lemon does, if he is a stud and a receiver is a position that you can be, the Eagles have an offense that it can happen. They have a myriad of offensive coordinators over the years, but you have Jalen Hurts, you have a winning culture. It can be a solid situation for him, probably arguably better than if he would have came to Pittsburgh with more instability at the QB position. Hurts is going to be there, despite all the conversation about him all the time. He's going to be there. He's already led him to 2 Super Bowls, won one. He's going to be there. And you don't have that in Pittsburgh. Now you don't have the receiver of the future just yet. You get a lineman, great, but he wasn't your guy. Again, mic drop here with Believe and available everywhere you get your podcast. What I also want to touch on here, and I mentioned it earlier, is the Rams trading up for Ty Simpson. And there was some conversation of the Steelers maybe doing so, or the Steelers drafting him, or somehow if he would have been available, the Steelers would have taken him because no one really thought he'd be a top 15 pick. The Rams taking him at 13. But for the Rams end of things here, the Steelers didn't do it, which I think is wise. For the Rams end of things, I do think it's a big reach to go grab Ty Simpson there in general. Simpson had 1 year as a starter. Yeah, there were numbers. Not crazy athletic. 28 TDs, 5 picks. That's a great spread, but you're in the SEC at Bama. There's going to be some big games. There's going to be some lesser big games. That's often the TD interception ratio is skewed for big time QBs, especially when your offensive line is just so ridiculously stout. And obviously it always is at Bama. And 3,000 plus passing yards, but it's not like it was 4,000 plus or he was just lighting the lamp all the time. But 1 year prior to that, a backup, red shirt to open up his college career. He's just a gamble to me. He's just a risk to me. Mike McCarthy said he wanted somebody that could handle cold weather, that could be physical, that could be really athletic, that could handle anything, that versatile QB. And Ty Simpson didn't fit anything Mike McCarthy wanted. That's why they didn't do it. He may fit more of what Sean McVay could put together. Although Sean McVay, and he actually is similar to Matthew Stafford in a way. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is I think bringing in Ty Simpson, if you're the Rams, and they did it, can make some sense in that you at least have another year of Matthew Stafford. You were just in the NFC title game. He was just the MVP, just solidified his Hall of Fame career, but he's not going to play forever. So if you still think you're an elite team, go for the title one more time. He's clearly your starter. Sean McVay is a quarterback guru. Sean McVay has helped Matthew Stafford, even though he was throwing up numbers with Detroit before getting there. Sean McVay has seen Baker Mayfield, multiple other QBs playing spotty times during the Matthew Stafford era because of injuries or whatever else and having success. That's a system that works. Sean McVay has gotten a lot out of QBs throughout his entire coaching career, even before getting to LA. Had Goff before Matthew Stafford, and Goff exploded since leaving, but he got to Super Bowl with Jared Goff. Give Sean McVay credit for that, even though Goff's better now. So Ty Simpson being with Sean McVay, learning his system, learning from him, that's a great spot. That's a great, and Sean McVay is not a 60-year-old coach. He's a younger-minded coach. I mean, obviously Ty Simpson's 20 plus years younger, but they can somehow relate to each other. It's not like Mike McCarthy and say Will Howard trying to relate. That's 40-year plus age difference. They're not going to have the same interest in hanging out on the weekends. I could see maybe more relationship building between Ty Simpson and McVay. And even though I know McVay's comments were weird, that he sounded like he didn't know him, he's going to get to know him. I still actually don't mind it, even if he didn't really look into it that much. I think Ty Simpson is a risk and is a project. But in any spot, you can maybe have success if that spot is perfect. I think the Rams might be the perfect spot for him, even though it was early. Even though they maybe should have done other things to win that championship. For him, it's a good spot. Learn from McVay. You're similar to Stafford already. Learn from Stafford. You have a Hall of Famer as a quarterback in front of you and a Hall of Famer as a head coach in front of you that have both won a championship with the franchise that you now have joined. That's a great spot. And it's all offensive minded. That's a great spot. So he's in a great spot. I wrote about it on Yardbarker already. Otherwise, he's a reach in general. David Bailey is a great pick for the Jets. They had one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL in a long time last year. Only 26 overall sacks at the bottom. He had 14 and a half as a senior with Texas Tech as they won the Big 12. His 2025 total of sacks matched his 3 prior years of college at Stanford. And that's Power 5, then Power 4 in the ACC football, at least, even though Stanford's not as big time of a program you wouldn't imagine. But Texas Tech before this past year, before really the boom of NIL in recent years, they weren't this either. That was their first conference title since the 90s. And yet Texas Tech is the Big 12 champs, was in the CFP because of what he could do defensively, really because of that pass rush led by Bailey. So that is one of those early picks that I definitely really, really like. Wrote about this too on Yardbarker. And then Jeremiah Love. I do want to touch on this too. And we'll get to, all the other picks either on more of these shows, on another national podcast that I do with a friend and colleague, George Gerbo, the Hauser and Buzzsaw show, more of the national scenes. Maybe we'll touch on all of that on our next edition. We do have our current edition out everywhere you get your podcasts as well. And that touches on kind of leading into the NFL draft, kind of our predictions, some hot takes. Right now, we're kind of on the money a little bit, to be honest. Didn't see the Steelers getting embarrassed, but otherwise, some news and notes around the NFL and then getting into the postseasons in both the NHL and NBA. But back here to Mic Drop. So I'll get more into the rest of the picks maybe later. But just for the purpose of this show, I do also want to touch on Jeremiah Love, an historic selection by the Cardinals, because he ends up being the first running back selected in the top 5 in, 7 years? 8 years, actually? 8 years since 2018. He's a beast from Notre Dame, for sure. 100%. And he could have instant success. He has that ability. He has that build, like a Saquon Barkley, to instantly step foot into the NFL and dominate. He has the mentality. He mentioned Saquon. He mentioned running backs and who he models his game after and kind of what he wants to do for the position. He even has a business mind. He wants to have his success show what can be possible with running backs. Great. And the Cardinals need a lot, so they're not going to have the weight of the world on their shoulders. There's no pressure in Arizona. That media is not like New York City, Philadelphia, even Pittsburgh. I mean, they're not going to hold their feet to the fire and be mad if they don't make the playoffs. They know they need a lot still. They do kind of recycle coaches, but there's not the pressure as if he was in other spots there. He'll kind of be under the radar. Nationally, the Cardinals are almost never discussed unless they have an amazing Cinderella season. He'll get the rock, and they'll build around him. All good. I think the spot's good. Granted, shelf life, but he'll have numbers, or I could see offensive rookie of the year for sure. If it doesn't go to a QB, and depending on how much Mendoza gets to play, because maybe he doesn't start the season, again, that's more opportunities for Love to win offensive rookie of the year. And I don't, by the way, think Mendoza would be vying for that, which I will kind of close the show with my takes on Mendoza. Call him hot if you want. And I already put him on social media. But Jeremiah Love, to me, is still a risky pick there. Again, nothing against him as a player. He is a beast. He's going to have success. I imagine he'll make Pro Bowls. He could vie for offensive rookie of the year, for sure. But a running back that early, and I've been a proponent of this for years, some vehemently disagree, whatever, we've seen it be right throughout the history of the NFL. I was saying this when the Steelers drafted Najee Harris. I was against that selection. He had all these 1,000-yard seasons. They didn't win playoff games. Again, nothing against him. Taking a running back in the first round, let alone in the top 5 picks or top 15 picks or top 10 picks. Bijan Robinson was pick 8 recently. It's the other recent high one that wasn't top 5, but still top 10. It's just really, really risky, man. And it's risky for this one reason. If you draft somebody in the first round, especially the top 5, top 10, you want that guy to be the face of your franchise for years to come. Not just for a couple years, not just for 3 or 4 years even. You want to resign that player. You want them to be there for the long haul. You want to market your franchise around that player, no matter the position. That's what you want to get out of your first-round pick. Or at least part of that group. If maybe you already have a face of your franchise and you're drafting a lineman, then okay. But the point of it really is you want to bring in somebody that's going to be with you for years to come, and you likely have the mentality of whoever I'm drafting, I'm going to hope will be here for a second contract beyond the rookie deal. I can re-sign, maybe re-sign again after that. First round running backs or running backs in general, really, do not sign the second deal with the team that drafted them. It's very, very rare and almost never happens. And we've seen it from the first round running backs. We'll see what happens with Bijan Robinson. I mean, Saquon's no longer on the Giants. He's on the Eagles. Once that money started being the conversation, he ended up parting ways. And yeah, the Giants kind of messed that up and he won a Super Bowl with the Eagles. But that's what you get into. Najee no longer with the Steelers. That's what you get into with the first round running back. And you can get production instantly. That can be good. If your team is ready to win now, maybe that's the missing piece to win you a championship. And you don't care about the second deal, and you flags fly forever, so you win a championship, and then maybe you have to worry about money a couple years later, or maybe you take a couple years off and bring somebody else in, and it's work for your management, but you got the championship, or you got the big run, your title game appearance, Super Bowl appearance. At least you get something out of it. All right, fine. The Steelers weren't ready for that when they brought in Najee Harris. That was evident. That was proven. And the Cardinals aren't ready for that right now with Jeremiah Love. I get the no pressure situation for him. That's great for him individually. He'll put up number there right away, but they're not going to go ahead and vie for the playoffs right away. They're not yet there. Not his fault, but by the time they get really there or get close to being there again, you're going to have conversations about a new deal. And then if he helps you get there because he is Offensive Rookie of the Year, because he does turn 1,000-yard season, because he shows his versatility, because he's a freaking beast, he's going to want more money. He's going to have teams all over the country vying for him, all over the league. And he's likely headed out of Arizona. Once he sees, oh, this team that's better wants me, this team's also willing to pay me a lot of money. This situation with Arizona isn't that great. There is a cap on the sport. I'm not saying it's MLB where you can just totally have price gouging and team offers way more, but I mean, he'll be able to play the field and he could simply even say, okay, the Cardinals offer me this money. The other team offer me similar or even less, but that team's better. So I'm going to go there. You're risking it all. And then if the player does not sign that second deal, how do you legitimize the draft pick? You're not getting what you wanted out of that first round pick. That's what happened with the running backs I mentioned in recent memory. That's what happened throughout the history of the league. Is when you get to that second deal with the running back, they usually end up leaving, or it ends up becoming a contract dispute. I mean, go further back, Le'Veon Bell. He thought he should have been a running back and a receiver, and he was doing both things, and he was a top 3 offensive player in the sport, and, it hurt him to leave. He never became the same player again, and he turned down a Steelers offer, actually, that was legit, and he messed that up for sure. But you get into that mess. And I'm not saying, at the time, Le'Veon Bell was a failure. It's a little different scenario, but still, running backs do not usually get to the second deal for whatever reason. And if you draft somebody that you can't get to the second deal with, you can't have a chance, really a legit chance. You're not likely to re-sign after their rookie deal. That's a problem. If you are unlikely to re-sign your first-round pick after their rookie deal, you have a very short shelf life with them. And if you're not yet ready to win, by the time you're ready, if you've been doing well as a management group while that player is with you, he's going to be gone and be out of the picture anyway. Won't be a part of it when you hit the ground running. That's what it feels like could be the situation already. I'm putting that out there in the ether with the Arizona Cardinals and Jeremiah Love. And also, shout out, I don't know the name of the person who randomly asked Love. You get one question, folks, colleagues in media. We get one question in these big national events. We're not going to be, it's not like an intimate press conference there when it's just you and the local media, or like when I'm sitting there covering West Virginia and it's Rich Rod or Ross Hodge. I mean, I fire off 3 or 4 usually. I'm fighting off 20 other colleagues usually in the room, maybe less, but I got a voice. I get 3 or 4 usually. This type of national event, you're getting one. There's a moderator. They're not going to give you the microphone 3 or 4 times. You get one, and somebody asked Jeremiah Love, he was, of course, going to get this. How are you going to market your last name? What are your thoughts on using your last name, being Love, for marketing for Valentine's Day? That's what this person asked. Their one question. Come on, man. Like, I'm sure he knows his last name. I'm sure he knows it can be marketed ahead of Valentine's Day. I'm sure the Cardinals do too. That's not why they drafted him. That's not why he cares about the draft. That's not what he wanted to talk about that night. He obviously has his mind on football. That's not going to help him. Yeah, I mean, marketing is later. Like, he'll make money. You can do different things on Valentine's Day, but it's not going to take him to success in his life. It's football. It's football. Well, let's talk some football. And I get off the field questions. I'm not against in general questions like that, but come on, you get one. And we're talking about how you're going to use your last name on Valentine's Day. Love. It's very, very cliche. Okay. You're just throwing an off the cuff cliche question out there, but we all get one, and that's what you're throwing out there. A little bit rough. Again, Mike Asti here. Mic Drop, made possible by the Believe Network and available everywhere you get your podcast. We opened up discussing how the Steelers got embarrassed in Pittsburgh, hosting the NFL draft in the first round, not getting their guy, and having the Philadelphia Eagles, a Philly team, embarrass a Pittsburgh team again this week by taking a pick right out from under them after they called Mekhi Lemon and told him they're taking him. And then, no, Philadelphia is, and you end up with Big Macs. We then went into some hot takes here. Ty Simpson with the Rams. What else is going on? Jeremiah Love, as I mentioned. David Bailey. I wrote about some of this on Yard Barker as well. I do want to close with my hot take. And I'm not the only one with this, but Fernando Mendoza is going to go down as a college football legend. He could never play a down in the NFL. He could get hurt tomorrow. He's going to go down as a college football legend. It's only off of really 1 year that was elite that set his legacy, but that 1 year will live in infamy, will live forever. And Indiana certainly set up to keep on winning under Cignetti, but even if they don't, that national title for one of the losingest programs in college football history will live and breathe forever as one of the most special ever. An undefeated season, 16-0. That is just unique. That hadn't happened in a century. It's happened a few other times, but we're talking about teams that played high school teams, basically, going way back to the 1800s even. And you have Kirsanetti, who was a good coach over the years, but was at IUP not long ago, was under Saban, and then went to Indiana University of Pennsylvania. And that is not a satellite campus of IU, by the way. And all of a sudden, they spent money. Cignetti can say they didn't or wants to downplay it all he wants. That's gaslighting. They spent money for sure. And it's the era that's legit. Fine. They spent money. Cignetti makes himself a legend, wins the national title as a head coach off an undefeated season after getting in the CFP a year before, which already was insane for Indiana with a 10-win year. You bring in Fernando Mendoza, who was at Cal, who was an afterthought, wasn't getting coverage. No one, even when he brought him in, and even though I think they spent more money than they let on, he was in a situation where he had to come over and he had to prove himself and had to show something, and nobody thought he would do what he did. Nobody thought he would do what he did last year in leading Indiana to that national championship season. He has the highlight reel there with the helicopter play in the national title game. All that's stuff for legends. He's as a Tim Tebow like legend in college football, but that's also a comparison I'm going to make right now. I think his NFL career might be much closer to Tim Tebow than, say, a legend or a Hall of Famer in the NFL. I don't think he's going to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame like he'll be in the College Football Hall of Fame. That helicopter play, you do that in the NFL in week 2, week 3, whatever, even in a playoff game, the defenders are going to rock you. They're going to intentionally hurt you probably. There'll be a bounty on you. They're not going to put up with that. He has some arm strength for sure, more than Tim Tebow for sure. Tim Tebow couldn't even really throw the ball. But he's not a burner. He's not a Michael Vick burner. He's not a Lamar Jackson. He can run. He can get around the pocket. But how much will that work in the National Football League is a major question. He won't have the offensive line around him like he had at Indiana, which is part of how they won. They were just a brick wall out there. They were a force to block for him. He won't have that with the Raiders. They need a lot. They're still going to be bad for a while, no matter who's their QB or what's going on there. They've recycled coaches. It's instability there all day, every day. He's not dealt with that, at least not at Indiana. That'll be weird for him. He's odd for their market, even though he won't get in trouble off the field. But there's not enough athleticism there for me. He relies too much on the line protecting him for me. He has a better arm, of course, than Tim Tebow, who doesn't. But still, I don't think it compares to some of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL for me. Maybe you could get there. This is not like Andrew Luck coming out or when Marino came out or John Elway came out. This is not a slam dunk guy to me. And so much so that his college football legend is one thing, and that's separate, and that will live forever. Not taking away or slighting that. And the Raiders had to make this pick. I'm not even taking anything away from the Raiders. They had to do this. If they didn't and he became a star, they would never live it down. This made sense for the Raiders to try this. But Fernando Mendoza, for me, is not going to be a Pro Football Hall of Famer. He's not going to be a perennial Pro Bowler. He's not going to be the face of your franchise. He's not going to lead the Raiders to a championship like he did Indiana. And they have more of a history than Indiana did, but it's been a long time for the freaking Raiders as well. In reality, based on him being a number 1 overall pick and the Heisman, the national title, the hype, the pedigree, going to a historic franchise, it's going to be a bust for me. I think Fernando Mendoza is going to be a bust, going to be a draft bust. He'll still be a college football legend, but going to be a draft bust. Tim Tebow didn't become a legend of the NFL, had that playoff moment, had the game winner there with the playoff pass against the Steelers with the Broncos, but then was an afterthought, was moved around, bounced around, a journeyman, and now in media, and didn't get a real legit shot after that, but didn't have the arm strength. Mendoza may have a little bit more traits, maybe a better chance than Tebow, but I think the career is going to mirror. It's going to be similar. I don't think he'll last with the Raiders more than a few years. They'll eventually realize it's not going to work. He'll then bounce around, maybe get one more shot. I'm not even sure over under 50 career NFL starts for me, let alone Hall of Fame, let alone perennial Pro Bowler. Someone said he'll be good but not a Pro Bowler. If you're good and not a Pro Bowler as the number 1 overall pick, you're a bust. I'm not saying he's going to be horrendous. I'm not saying he's going to be a problem. I'm not saying he's going to be Johnny Manziel or Baker Mayfield, where it takes a while to get going and Johnny Manziel ruins his career and then Baker Mayfield eventually gets it going at the end of Cleveland and then, of course, with Tampa. I'm not saying you're going to have those two polar situations. I'm not saying it'll be either one of those, where it'll be a late trajectory or it'll just be off the field crap. I don't think it'll be a Geno Smith story too either, where eventually it'll take a decade, but he'll get going. Sam Darnold win a championship. It took a while, still very, very young, was in a situation with instability. Then he got in better spots, learned, and now is great and playing at an elite level. I don't feel that either from Mendoza. I think it's more of a chance, no, bounce around, out of the league. Like, I don't even see him being in the NFL in mid-30s. I don't. Maybe it's a hot take. I think it's more of a similar Tim Tebow ride than even the Geno Smiths or the Sam Darnolds. I don't think he'll get that shot later in his career. And, Sam's still relatively young. I don't see it. I don't see it. I think fewer than 50 career starts, fewer than 40 maybe even. And I think Fernando Mendoza is not going to translate like some hope he does. He'll be a college football legend, not an NFL legend, not a Pro Football Hall of Famer. And he'll be a bust as the number 1 overall pick. That'll do it for this first round recap edition of Mic Drop here. Had to put this together. A lot happened in that first round. I was out there at Acrisure Stadium. A really, really cool atmosphere. Pittsburgh did it big. Great job by the city. Set a record for attendance of 320K. There was some annoyances of me trying to find my credential, by the way, but I won't get into that here. It's not those people's fault, and I should have got it the day before. I had to do a lot of walking, really crushed the steps. But overall, for the fans, it was a win in terms of the setup and what was put together. More days to come here after the recording of this show, but a big win for Pittsburgh as a city, not as a franchise. The Steelers got embarrassed by the Eagles, by a Philadelphia team in the first round while hosting. That's rough. Had to do this and had to get that out. But again, mic drop here, made available everywhere you get your podcasts with Believe, played on SiriusXM. You can find me all over social media. You can find some of my articles that cover what happened in that first round of the NFL draft over at Yardbarker. I don't know how the Steelers are going to squirm out of this. I mean, they can't deny this. There's a video. They called the man. The Steelers got embarrassed. They didn't get their guy. Still may work out, but they didn't win the first round. We'll see about the rest, and we'll see how this goes. But there's just no denying this. There's no way to get around this if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers.